In this video today, I'm going to show you how to work with Glazchem a little bit and how to enter a recipe into the database. This is the database of all of my glazes right here. To enter a new recipe into it, I can choose Edit from the menu and choose Insert New, and it will drop a glaze titled New Glaze right into my database. By double-clicking on this, it brings up a dialog box. Right here, I can name this glaze, so I'm going to name this one Tony Hansen's 5 by 20 glaze. This is a glaze that Tony Hansen of Digital Fire came up with. It's a glaze that's got 5 ingredients, 20% of each ingredient. Now I can click on the Recipe tab of this window, and there's some different parts of this. There's a components parts, which lets me add the main components of the glaze. There's additions, there's materials, and there's an analysis. So to begin adding components, I just click in the components dialog box, and one of the components in this glaze is EPK. And so I can just type EPK, and then if I press the tab button, it jumps over to where I can enter an amount of how much of this ingredient I'd like to have. So I'm going to enter 20. Now there's another way to enter ingredients, and that is to scroll down the materials list. So I know that one of the materials in this glaze is Frit 3134. So if I click on this, in the materials list, it drops 100% of that into the glaze. So I'm going to highlight this number and change that to 20 and then hit enter. Another thing that Glazchem allows you to do is it allows you to type the first 3 letters of an ingredient, hit tab, and it fills in the rest of it for you. So now I'm going to hit 20 again. I know that Wollastonite is in this glaze, so I can hit WOL, and if I add a few more characters and hit tab, it still will fill it in anyways. Enter 20 for that. And I know that flint is in this glaze, and so some of the ingredients you can type the whole thing if you're inclined to and hit tab, and that's another way you can enter it. Now if you come down to this working batch size right here, you can change the size of the batch you're working with, and so this is useful when you're printing glazes out and would like to take a copy of that glaze recipe into your studio. If you wanted to add additions to this glaze, you would just click in this box and add the additions. This tab allows you to add notes about the different variations you use of this glaze, or of the notes that you'd like to write just in general about how this glaze works. The analysis tab right here analyzes the glaze in terms of its chemical formula. So in this column, it's a unity formula. This will add up to 1. These are typically all of the fluxes in your glaze. Over here, we've got alumina, and that's the clay in your glaze. And lastly, over here, we've got silica. This window also lists the entire recipe. You can also look at an analysis for your glaze while you're working with it if you're in the Recipe tab, and then you choose Analysis, and you get kind of that same analysis window here, but with a little bit less information than in the other window. Now what I like to do after I have a recipe entered and I want to tweak it a little bit is I will come down near the bottom and choose Save Changes. This saves this recipe into my glaze database. But I need to save my glaze database so that the next time I open Glazchem, this recipe is still here. So I choose File, Save Glaze Database. And so now the next time I open Glazchem, this recipe would still be here. One of the other things I like to do when I get ready to tweak a glaze is I like to have the original glaze, Tony Hansen's 5 by 20, still in my database. So what I typically do is this. I'll shut this window, and then I'll make sure that I've got Tony Hansen's 5 by 20 highlighted, and then I will go to Edit, and I will choose Copy. Then I will go back to Edit again and choose Paste. What this does is it gives me a second copy of the glaze. So I've got my original, and now I've got my copy. At this point, you need to give your copied glaze a name that's different than your original, so you can double click on it in the name box, add something to it. So I'm going to call this one variation number 1. And then I'm going to save the changes to this glaze by choosing Save Changes. And then I'm going to shut this glaze window. And then I'm going to come over here and choose File, Save Glaze Database. And that way all of these glaze recipes are saved for the next time that I open up Glazchem. So in this intro video, what we've seen is how to do some basic entering of glazes into Glazchem and how to make a copy of it. In the next video, I'll show you how to use the Make Suggestion button so that you can alter the materials that your glaze is made from.